I don't know what took so long to do this video because you guys have been asking for it for over a year now, and finally here it is. It was an interesting approach to create this, and it was also very surprising to watch it on TV and kind of having a completely different idea what it was to seeing it here and then breaking it down and rebuilding it. So I think there's going to be a lot of unique techniques that I'm using here that are going to be beneficial to you and probably you haven't really seen put together in this package on this channel before. And before we jump into the tutorial section, let me just say this. We have 24 hours left for you to take advantage of a huge discount on my masterclass. If you like the content here, trust me, take all of this and 10x it. That's what's in my masterclass. Let's just see what's inside FCN. 267 plus curated on-demand lessons, 100 gigs worth of professionally shot practice footage, access to exclusive Facebook community, weekly coaching videos with tailor-made feedback, $1,000 cash prize for the FCM challenge winner. Click the link to sign up for the masterclass before the special offer ends. So the link is going to be up here also in the description below. So make sure, click on it, just learn more, and I promise you, you will not regret it. And guys, if this content is helping you, then do me a favor, pause this video, smash that like button so we can reach more people, we can help more people. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified when we drop value bombs like this in the future. And follow me on Instagram for more behind the scenes and cool stuff. Let's roll the intro. Excited to be doing this tutorial here. It's been forever since you guys have been requesting to do a tutorial on Game of Thrones, and it's finally happening. And I think we couldn't have chosen a better shot. It's just such a quintessential Game of Thrones reference when you think about it, right? So this is what we're going to be creating. This is what we have. So it's definitely not in the same realm. This I know for a fact is shot somewhere in winter, and it looks really cold and it's all there. Whereas we're not going to have that here. This is more of a, spring or summer. I mean, it's still cold, feels like wherever they are as well. But like you can see the grass, like how that's different than here. So we're going to be manipulating and creating a lot of things that don't necessarily belong, but we're still going to do it in a way where it feels like this is how it was done. Okay. That's the whole point of color grading. You want to exclude yourself, and at the end of the day you just want to leave your viewer with a better experience, a more enhanced experience, if you will. So this, as you guys saw from the title, we're going to be grading this in ACES, which makes it very exciting, and we're going to be using the latest version of ACES that was introduced in DaVinci Resolve 17.4. I'm talking about ACES 1.3. So this is going to be a 7-node node tree, not that complex. I'm going to move these 4 nodes down here. It's going to make a bit more sense. And then at the end, we're going to drop an ACES transform, and we're going to leave it at ACES 1.3. And here we're going to select Alexa. And as soon as we do that, it looks all weird, but then output transform, we're going to select Rec 709, and then boom, there you go. That's our proper conversion with a Rec 709. Okay. So everything is looking proper now. And with ACES, you guys know that everything is kind of pushed. The contrast is like really pushed compared to a DaVinci Wide Gamut, which gives you a lot more room. And that's why I kind of like DaVinci Wide Gamut a lot as well. But ACES has a significant advantage when it comes to quote unquote that film look that we crave so much. I feel like it's easier with the dials to get there with ACES. Okay. That said, we got a long way to go. All right. So if I do this, this is what we got. This is where we want to end up. So let's look at a few things when we bring this shot up. We clearly see here, and look at our scopes, my reds are sitting down here, which you can see is adding a little bit of that cyan on the bottom end that we feel. Even if you look at the horses, they're not pure white. Why? Because look at this. The entire image is sitting on right here. Look at the bottom right quadrant. So this is very important to see, okay? It's like the color palette is so carefully chosen here. It gives you that like desolate, cold, undead feel, and it's very carefully placed compared to what we got going on where it's all over the place. So we got a long way to go. I mean, look at all these colors, okay? So we first need to balance our shots somewhat, and then from there we can start dialing it in. Honestly, I don't even think we need to really balance our shot because I feel like it's sitting where it needs to be. We just need to get a lot of these green tones out and like channel all the colors to go straight down there, and it's going to get really close. So let's just jump right in. So what I'm going to do is we have already done our conversion. And at that point, this is what I'm going to do. This is my primaries node, okay? And I'm not going to name them. I'm going to name them as we go along and plug in everything. So this is our primaries. And in our primaries, before I even do my primaries, I want to go here and create a custom curve. Why am I doing that? Because the contrast between the two shots is very different, okay? Ours is very crushed in the midtones, whereas here there's a lot of breathing room. It looks more like quote unquote film, all right? So we want to create that gentle film curve. So I'm going to go in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these two open like that, and I'm just going to bring down my highlights because see, like our image has like really strong highlights. Let's just even work right here, over here. So I'm going to pull this down somewhere around here. I'm going to pull this up somewhere around here. And now I'm going to create a point right here. I'm going to create another point right here and start bringing this up. And already you're going to see the contrast, how much we opened it up in this area and how close it even feels to this. Like, see, so we started to open it up quite a bit, okay? And we can try to now park it somewhere around here and just see what's going on. I don't even want to do that. I just want to take this and kind of like put it somewhere around here, take that, and let's see. So look at this, okay? Just look at this, like how it feels. You know, both of these environments are very different, and how these shots look, it's not easy to match the contrast. But we were able to get pretty close. Again, guys, the whole idea behind recreating these looks is not to do a 100% one-to-one match, but just to give you an idea for what are the steps that you can take to emulate a certain look and get in the same world. Like, you know, you see Battle of the Bastards episode and you go, oh my God, how amazing would it be to create that look? Well, your dreams are coming true by watching this episode. We're going to try to break it down, analyze what happened here that we like, how can we create that here, and then go from there. So obviously, look at the contrast. We're starting to get pretty close. Like, look at the highlights on the blues. Look at the highlights on the blues. Look at the highlights on the greens. Look at the highlights on the greens. Like, we're already getting pretty close. We know we need to raise the reds a little bit because there's a lot more balance happening here compared to this shot, okay? So far, so good, okay? Now, in our primaries, like I said, we're going to add a little bit more balance. So I'm going to go under my offset. I'm going to take my red, and I'm going to start raising it up, okay? So now, if you look at the red here, the red here, and you look at the red to the ratio to the green and the blue, and we're getting pretty close, okay? I want to add a bit more cyan in my offset. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to start adding this cyan. And you guys see this type of dialogue, right? Like where I'm kind of talking to myself and I'm going back and forth. It's like I'm having a conversation with you guys too, and we're trying to figure it out, what needs to be done. So already I'm feeling really good. Forget about the saturation, right? Our image has a lot more saturation. But if you look at the horse to the horses in the back, right? If you look at like how he looks with the darks, we got some of that going on. Look at our dude, right? Look at this guy to here. Like we have similar things going on, and you can even see it in the scopes. Now what we can do is in our log wheels, we can bring our bottom down just a little bit, you know, so we still have, see, so we got a little bit of this going on. And guys, look at this. I feel like we're making really, really positive changes, okay? And we're just getting started. There's a couple of steps to like really get in there, but I want to make these global adjustments and give you an idea for how I would approach it. So like already look at our scopes, how well our scopes are doing. Our blues, our greens, our reds, all right? All of it is like looking really good. Like look at the red right here, like, you know. Okay, so look at this. Like overall, there's so much cyan here, right? Look at our image, how much cyan is there. The green is throwing it off. But besides that, like overall, we're in the same ballpark, okay? So we're looking good. Now at this point, what we need to do is this. I'm going to go on this node. I'm going to call it look. Should we call it look? Yeah, let's call it look because there's going to be a lot that's going to be happening here. So first thing that's going to happen here, I'm going to go under hue versus saturation. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave my cyan where it is. So I'm going to draw a point here. And let's raise this up a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. So here, I'm going to hit 1. So no saturation happening there. But then remember what we see here is that there's only one color, nothing else. Hold on, let me see why it's stuck. All right, this is better. So see like how there's one line and then nothing else? We want to try to do the same thing here, right? So how can we do that? What about if we grab this and start pulling this down? Look at what we're doing. And then we grab it from here and we start doing a similar thing, right? And I want to make sure that it's not showing any edges or anything like that, right? So like, I'm like really focusing right here right now. And I want to make sure it doesn't like show any edges. So I think it's pretty clean right here. So just look what we were able to do, how we were able to control that grass. We're going to eventually use qualifier, but without even doing that, we're just going off of our scope. So once you have a good understanding of reading your scopes and what needs to be done, it can really cut tons of steps to get there. Okay. So that alone has done a really great job. Okay. Now, if we look at our horse to this horse right here, I feel like there's a lot of like similar tones that are already coming in. So we're kind of looking good there. Okay. Now what I really need to do is I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go under my qualifier and I'm just going to grab my grass. I'm going to hit Shift H and then let's reduce the size of this. And now let's see if we can get it a little bit cleaner. Even something like that. I'm going to control my luminance. So a little bit of this, and then we're going to add some denoise. Okay. And then after that, if I come out, and now all we need to do is this. I'm going to go back in this mode. I'm going to take my contrast and I'm going to crank it. Okay. And then I'm going to take my gain and I'm going to add a little bit more warmth. And just like that, if I do before and after, and this is going to stick, okay? So this is not something that's going to be thrown off when we move our image. So like, look at that. This is going to stick. So here we are. Now, all that I see is that maybe we just got too much saturation going on in our highlight. So I can go back in my look node, okay? And I can do two things. I can just take the saturation down in my highlights, but I think we can bring down the saturation overall. I feel like our image just has a bit more saturation, just a tiny bit more saturation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in my curves. I'm going to go back in my luminance versus sat, and I'm going to take the highlighted areas and I'm going to start pulling them down. And I think this is somewhere around here is we start to see like a similar vibe, but obviously we can see that we can take advantage of the cyan a little bit more. So we can push just a bit more cyan into our image and see what that does. Okay. So there's a couple of ways to go about it. I can just go under my hue versus saturation, take my cyan here and start pulling that up a little bit. Right. Something like that. And pop it next to this. And now under my hue versus hue, I just want to see where do I want to take it. I think this, where it was best. Okay. So what do I see now overall in my image? Like if I look at my scopes to what's happening here, I think we're looking really good. One thing that I do see is that I want to work on my contrast a little bit more. I'm going to go in here. What I want to do is I want to lift up my gamma I want to bring down my gain. Okay. And that's just me looking at the horses to the horses, right? Like highlights on the horses. I want to kind of control that. And then I want to take my lift and I want to pull it down a little bit. And now if I do this, like already, I feel like we're looking pretty good. Even just like look at the ground, right? It's looking really good. One more thing that I'm going to suggest we do is this. We go under the look node. We go in our color boost and we start messing with it. So pull back our color boost a little bit. Pull it up. So even like -4, it might not look 100% correct. And I feel like what's happening right now is that we just have a little bit more warmth in our midtones. So to correct that, I'm going to go in my primaries. I'm going to take my gamma and I'm going to start pulling it down a little bit just to add a little bit this sort of cyan that we got going on in our image, okay? I'm going to go under my gain and kind of do the same thing. So if you look at the horses, like look at this, how close we're getting, right? I think there's still just too much saturation overall, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go under here, and that's for the actual overall like vibe. Again, not like 100% one-to-one match, but I still want to feel like in the right ballpark. So I'm going to take sat versus sat, and I'm going to try to take the edge off here. And now let's look at the two. So honestly, this is looking pretty good. And once again, let's look at the scopes. Where we started to where we come up. Like, look at the scopes here. And then here, like the same exact color. And then here. Like, look at this. All of these colors, okay? All of these tones. So at this point, I want to do a couple of more things, okay? So overall, this image is very soft, right? Almost like got a lot of motion blur and that kind of thing going on. And then we're going to add a little bit more grain. This is obviously pulled from YouTube, so you know grain never even shows on YouTube. But when I watched it in Blu-ray, there was all obviously grain on there, and that's really going to help us bring everything together. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to show you guys two techniques. I'm going to take my midtone detail. I'm going to go to -50 on my midtone detail, all right? And I feel like that just really softens up. Like, look at what it's doing in all these areas. And like, look at this. And it just feel like overall the way whatever lenses they use to shoot this footage, I think it's just really, really sharp. And this just really helps with that. So even if I go here and show you what's happening, so that does a huge thing. But guys, I'm going to do one more thing, which is going to be pretty cool, okay? I'm going to go under our blur versus blur. I'm going to add a little bit more blur here, okay? So I'm just going to go to 0.52. And that's going to soften up the image even more. Because once again, if we look at this, like look how soft this is. And now we're finally getting there compared to before. Before it was just so sharp. And now finally, we're getting very, very close there, okay? And then one more thing I'm going to do here is just go in here, type in grain. And I love how the grain looks in ACES. That's another thing that I absolutely love about it. It's just so unapologetic. It's pushed. And I feel like you guys are going to be able to see this even on YouTube. So if I do before, after, before, after. So it looks really, really good. And now if we look at the two images, right? If we put these two next to each other, I mean, now it just comes down to your preference. Do you want to pull some of the blue out of your background here? Or do you want to leave that as is? Now, one more step that I'm going to do, which I should have shown you, is this. Because this look to me, I just know is not 100% bleach bypass. That I can tell you right now. Because there's just so much breathing room. So one of the ways with Resolve 17 that we got was this option, sat versus luminous, which is a crazy hack to create bleach bypass effect very easily. So you just grab this, the darker area, and push it a little bit up like this. And then I just like to do a little bit of like, you know, pull from here. And that creates like a very similar thing that I feel like they got going on over here. And I can even pull this a little bit more. I don't want to overdo it, because then what we have to do is, now that we raised our overall image up quite a bit, I feel like we need to go in our primaries, take my gamma and just like kind of pull it down. So gamma up, gain down. let's see how the overall contrast feels. So what I want to do is I want to take my log wheels and I want to pull this down just a touch. I like the darks, right? Like right here in the hair, and then that's what we're getting here. And I personally feel like that bleach bypass did clean up, like right here on the highlights and the horse. So look at this, these two images. Look at this. We're 1-to-1 here. We're 1-to-1 here. Look at our blues, our greens, our reds, all in the same ballpark. Look at the bottom. Same ballpark. Okay? So, to my eyes, this is a pretty good match. And even if we look at the saturation, right? So let's do this all the way. And look at the saturation. Like this to me looks really good. So let's pull this down. And let's check it out. Where we started to where we ended up. So let's start naming these. So this was our unsharpened, right? This was our grain. So as with any grade, you look at it and you find new things that you can improve. So now that I'm looking at the two, I feel like we can still work on the contrast a bit more and make it just a tiny bit better. I still feel like we're really, really close and the vibe is there and all of that. I just feel like maybe there's a bit more saturation in the sky that we can take out, and we can add just a tiny bit more contrast in here in the ground. And then overall, I feel like the image can just use a bit more cyan. So what I want to do, first step, I want to go in here. I want to add in my offset, I want to add one more cyan. So as soon as I do that, already, I feel like this is a change in the right direction. Now I want to go in here and I want to pull some of the color out even more. Okay, so I'm going to go under luminance versus saturation. I'm going to take this and I'm going to start pulling this down and then kind of leave it somewhere around here. Okay, so that's another thing that I wanted to do. And now the final thing is I want to go in here. I want to go under my contrast and I want to start cranking in the contrast a bit more here. And obviously go too far and then kind of pull back. And now let's bring it next to each other. And even something like that. I feel like this looks good. So that is really doing it. Like, I feel like these are good changes. All right. Like he looks really, really close to this. Overall vibe is getting pretty close. Is there anything else that we want to change? Now, since we don't see the sky in this shot, sky is up for interpretation, right? Like where sky can be, because we can go in our primaries and then just like kind of take it there, right? So now I'm just looking at my horse to horse. They're looking super, super close, right? Like I'm looking here to here. Maybe I can add just a bit more blue, right? Like something like this. So now I promise the last two changes that I'm going to make before wrapping up this tutorial would be this. Because I just feel like it's still kind of lifted in the midtones. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's just not going to happen. So because we don't need to grade for what's happening back there. We need to grade for what's happening over here, because now our shot changes from this to this, right? Like they're running. So we're shooting from the other angle. It needs to have this kind of contrast, not that kind of contrast. So I've been compensating for that, but let's really keep this sort of like high contrast going in here as well. Okay, so it's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to grab it from here and I'm going to start moving it in. Okay, and I'm just really going to bring that in. I'm going for it. So even something like that. And now if I come out of here and look at this. All right, let's so even that is looking much better. Okay, so I'm liking that. And then one last thing that I do want to do is I want to go back in here. I'm still not happy with the saturation that we got going on. So I'm going to go under luminance versus saturation. I'm going to pull this down. I'm just really going to bring this down. I feel like look at this. I personally feel like this is just better. And once again, just think of like how the contrast and the everything that we got going on in the foreground is what this is from the other angle. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, I swear, I can work on this for the next 5 hours if I keep staring at it, but I feel like what we ended up with, what we have here, it's a pretty good representation of what we wanted to create. Once again, right from here to here, not bad at all. And then finally, we definitely don't need to select the trees up here. So if I hit Shift H, like there's all these areas that we're selecting, and I feel like we can easily just do a gradient window and put that right over here somewhere. And if I just do this, that should be able to cover everything. And there you go. So that way we're not selecting anything up top. We're not messing with the trees. We're leaving them as is, and we're just selecting the ground and controlling that. So guys, that said, what I'm going to do is just kill everything here, bring up our image, and let's do a look recap. So we started with our ACES to X709 conversion. Then we used our custom curves to bring up the image a little bit, did our primaries to just take the edge off. And then the look is where most of the magic happened. Ground was a pretty significant one to just like tie the whole look together. Unsharpening was an important characteristic to bring what we see here, which is like this really cool soft focus feel. And then finally, we just added the grain to bring everything together. Let's check out the final look in full screen. So I had a lot of fun putting this tutorial together, and hopefully you guys took a lot of value out of it. Do not forget to check out the link below and sign up for the masterclass. Take advantage of this deal. You will get the masterclass sooner or later, so why not do it with a 30% off? It is valid till November 15th, 11:59 p.m. So check out the link down below. And if you're enjoying the content, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more awesomeness, and remember, work hard, get obsessed, get possessed. I will see you guys in the next video.